Hi, everybody. My name is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America. This is our Monday night Moms Connect call. And tonight we have a very special guest, Susan Patterson, and we're going to be talking all about communication. But before we get there, I just want to preface and put it in the context of our mission. Our mission at Moms Across America is to educate and empower mothers and others with actions and solutions to create healthy communities. And we do this in a variety of ways, and we look at all kinds of different things that impact our health. And the one thing that I've gotten the most out of doing all of this work is that community is what makes it happen. One person alone, it doesn't work out. We need community and we need support. And I'm very glad to have Susan Patterson on tonight. She's been a part of my community in Southern California for, oh boy, like 12, 13 years now, something like that, right, Susan? I think, you get it.
Yeah, that long.
That long.
People say that, it makes me feel old,
That's okay. You look great though. You don't look old, so don't worry about it. But Susan, to give a little background on her, she's been a communication coach and expert for about 30 years now. And she's been an activist for many years. You'll have to say for how long. You're an avid boogie boarder in Southern California, which I love. And you can't tell, but she's probably, are you close to 60?
68.
Yeah, 68, and she's a boogie boarder. She's so awesome. And she's a life coach and supports people with ADD and things like that. And she's an activist. And I'm going to have her say a little bit more about her activism, and then we're going to get into some communication coaching. And we're doing this because this is a challenging time for all of us. I mean, not only has 2020 just thrown us for a complete loop, but when we get together during the holiday times, especially around an election, we could all really use some help, I think, and communicate with our family members who undoubtedly have different perspectives, right? I have dear friends, many people on this call that have completely different points of view than I do. And I'm sure Susan does too, and I'm sure all of you do. And that can be very challenging. We can find ourselves alienating our friends or being alienated or withholding and making people wrong and really damaging our relationships with the type of communication that we do. Not intentionally, it's just sort of a human thing. So Susan's here today to talk us through some steps and some tips and techniques that I did feature in my book, Unstoppable, which you can see back up here, and continue to share with people. But you'll get to hear it directly from Susan, and then maybe we'll have some time for a little bit of coaching too, if somebody would like that. So Susan, why don't you say a little bit more about the type of activism that you do and why communication is so important?
Sure. Well, first of all, if I hadn't taken on human trafficking, I'm a national leader in the fight against human trafficking, mainly for the faith community. If I hadn't taken that on, I would be all over your group. I mean, I am passionate about organic. I eat 100% organic. Let's say 99%. Like that. I cook, and I actually wrote a book about healthy organic meals for less than $10 a day to support my children to cook, because at that time organic was very expensive. Now it's just, fruit and meat tends to be expensive, but the rest of it has really come down in price. So I just want to say this is something I'm very passionate about. I'm very excited about. And with regard to what I'm going to talk about today, it's actually a principle. I also led a lot of sales trainings in corporations. So this is a principle that is used in every sales training. It's called the feel, felt, found method. So feel, felt, and found. And I'm going to give examples of this. And once you understand how to use it, it'll just roll off your tongue, and you'll be a great communicator if you do it. So first of all, people want to feel heard. People want to feel heard. So if they say something like, okay, the FDA says my food is safe. If you start saying, well, you can't trust the FDA or all of that, they feel like you're arguing with them, and they're just going to argue back and defend their position. Okay, they immediately feel like you think you're superior to them, that you know more than them. You come across as arrogant to some people. They're not going to listen to you because you just shut them down. and they're not going to be receptive to anything you say. So you need to get over there with them. So the first step is feel, which has them feel heard. So what you would say is something like, you know what? There was a time in my life where I thought the exact same way. You know, that if the FDA says the food is safe, then it must be safe. Now they don't feel like you think you're smarter than them or whatever, like you really get it.
You're essentially saying, Susan, I know how you feel, right?
I know how you feel, and I felt the same way.
Right, got it. Okay.
I know how you feel. I felt the same way. Very important that you do this. And if they want to respond, let them respond. Now they're receptive. Then you tell them what you found. And what happened was, you know, I researched organic, and what I found was that, you know, the FDA does have good standards for safety. I mean, you know, they have all these parts per million, and when it becomes toxic. But with regard to taking care of my children, I have a higher standard with regard to how much toxins I'm willing to have serve my children, and it's higher. My standard's higher than the FDA, which is why I feed them organic, because, you know, if you're eating, you know, insecticides, things with insecticides, it lowers your immune system response. So, you know, you're less likely to fight viruses when they come along and things like that. So this became important to me, which is why I really took this on, something like that. So that's an example. So I'm going to give another example. People will say, you know, I know eating organic is better, but, you know, I just can't afford it. My food budget won't allow it. And say, you know, God, I know how you feel. When I saw those prices at the supermarket with how much fruit costs, it's like twice as much. I said, you know, I can't double my food budget. That's not going to work for me. So I know exactly how you feel, and I felt the same way. However, what I found was when I went into a store and I took my shopping list and I wrote down how much things cost that are non-organic and how much things cost that are organic. What I found was that grains and beans and root vegetables and a lot of things, the difference is insignificant. So a difference between a pound of rice being non-organic or organic is like 30 cents, and a pound of rice is 9 cups. So that's like 9 servings. I mean, I can afford 30 cents divided by 9 servings. I mean, what is that? 3 cents? I can afford 3 cents more per serving to eat organic. And given that rice and beans are like the main staple of a meal, or about 50% of a meal, it made me feel really good as a mother. So what I did was, you know, I started maybe eating less fruit, except the inexpensive fruit, and less meat, which is probably healthier for you anyway, and started eating more grains and vegetables, whole grains and vegetables, so that at least 50-60% of my diet was organic, and then I built from there. And people always say to me when I say that, that makes sense. That makes sense. I heard them, that makes sense. I'm not like overwhelming them. I'm not saying, well, it doesn't matter how expensive it is. This is so important. Then they, you know, they don't feel like you get them. This is so important, and you're killing yourself, and all that drama is, they just feel shut down. And I know people have talked like that to their friends and family, and their friends and family have said, I am not willing to talk to you about organic ever again.
Yeah, and can we pause there for a second, Susan, and point out why that is? Why that is because you've made them wrong.
Yes,
right?
They feel made wrong.
And you've made them wrong, and you are therefore taking a righteous, it feels like a righteous sort of higher position, and nobody likes that, right?
Right. And that you have no compassion for their situation, which is they're on a tight food budget. You know what I mean?
Can you raise your hand if you can relate to this, people? Like, could you hear like either yourselves or other people, in this type of conversation?
Well, Susan Olson just put in the chat, they feel shamed.
Yes, thank you.
They feel shamed. Like they don't care as much about their children as you care about yours. That's how you could come across.
Yes, right. And when I was getting trolled, the troll hashtag was mom harder. Like I was being a mom harder than anyone else, and I was all righteous, like the trolls were like trying to
Right.
say, look, this mom thinks she's all better than everybody else, right?
Like, yeah, like you think you're the super mom.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And that, the rest of us are, whatever, good moms, but you're the better mom. And yes, a feeling of guilt on Drag Race. Exactly. It makes them feel guilty. And here they are. They don't think they can afford it. They know they should, but now they feel guilty. And that's a very uncomfortable feeling. So they just want to get away from you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So then I might share, and by feeding, I actually worked it out by feeding mainly grains and vegetables, the root vegetables like carrots and stuff like that, that my food budget wasn't, and eating less meat, because let's face it, meat's more expensive, that I actually got my food budget in line with the way it's always been, and wound up eating 80% organic. And that made me feel really good. I learned to create more proteins and stuff because I wasn't eating as much meat. So I figured it out. And then at this point, people say to me, really? So, what's that about? And I'll say, if you combine, you get quinoa as a complete protein, and, whatever, you can mix it with your rice because that is a little more expensive. And I give them ideas. Now I'm the hot tip lady.
Yeah. And I'd like to point out, you said one thing you gave, here's what I found, right? I found that the grains were actually cheaper. It was only 3 cents more. You gave one thing and then you stopped and then
and let them talk.
Ask a question, right? And they were like, really? How? Like, and they might ask like, what grocery store or where did you find this out or whatever. And once they ask a question, then you've got somebody that's actually interested. You're not just
they're engaged.
Yeah, they're engaged.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is the other mistake I see people make. And it's not just organic, it's human trafficking, it's everything. I have to talk to people. They're so passionate. They run people over. So they will do this found step and talk for 10 minutes.
Yeah, who can relate to that? This. Right. Like 5,000 facts. I could talk for 3 hours just about glyphosate. Wait, I want to pause for 1 second. Max, you had your hand up. Did you have a question for Susan?
Yeah, well, along slightly different lines. One of my favorite expressions is you can pay the farmer now or pay the doctor later.
Right.
Yes.
Right. You can say that, but you got to ease into that one because that's
in the righteous zone, right?
Right. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
But you don't want to start there. You could ease into that one. So I have said that, by the way. Once they're enrolled and they're with me and they started eating organic and they're now my friend and we're talking about it and they say, Susan, I discovered I'm eating more organic. And I said, isn't that great? Because, we're either paying the farmer now or paying the doctor later, right? And they go, yeah, but now they're good because they're eating organic. So they're on the right team and they can embrace that, but you can't start out that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very good. Yeah. So you're giving them one piece of information once you've related to what they said. I know how you feel. I felt the same way. And here's what I found. And there's that one piece of information. And then they ask a question about that. Like, oh, really? Like, well, where do you get that? Or how do you do this? Or, who taught you this or whatever, right? They're going to, if you stop talking, zip it. Right. My mom says, enjoy the silence.
And they say what they say.
Yes. They'll ask a question.
And they may ask a question that you don't think is the most important, but you got to be patient. This is the other thing. We know from marketing that repetition, people have to hear things 6 times before they'll even consider it sometimes. If you only needed to tell people something once, you'd only see a beer commercial once. The reason why you see it 30 times is they have to keep saying it. So sometimes I've had this conversation with people and they go, okay, glad it works for you. In other words, they have cut me off and that's fine. I let it go. And when I see them again, I approach it differently because they're not being receptive, right? So I'll say, oh my God, I just figured out this new recipe I tried for beef stew and it was so good. And then they'll start talking to me about food now, about beef stew. And then I'll say, yeah, and by putting potatoes in there, and which aren't expensive, non-organic potatoes are not expensive, and only using one green pepper, because by the way, green peppers are very expensive organically, is I was able to make the stew and add, my only cheat was I added a cup of wine, but it was because it wasn't organic, but it was so good. Everything else was, and it only cost me whatever, $2 per serving. I'm so proud of myself.
Mhm.
And then they say, good for you, or now they might ask a question. So you've got to figure out a way to repeat or approach that's not direct until they eventually do get engaged. And people are enrolled in your enthusiasm. They are enrolled in your passion. People get enrolled in that. So if I'm super excited about this recipe and I was able to make a beef stew and it cost me $1.50 per serving, this is the one that really gets people where I live. I don't know if you all have Chipotle, but I'll tell them that I made a Chipotle burrito, and because I cooked the rice and beans, I had them in advance, and all I had to do was roll it and put it together. It took me 3 minutes, and I made it organic, and it cost me $2.50, where Chipotle's charging $7. They're like, really? So Chipotle is like a, whatever you want to call it, a hot term around here, or a popular, or everyone loves Chipotle where I live, everyone. So if I say I made a Chipotle burrito for $2.50 when they're paying $7, and I did it 100% organic, they'll talk to me. So
Yeah,
we want to be
I'd
clever.
I'd like to point out something. You're sharing a win, right?
Yes.
You're not complaining. Yes. Our natural tendency in communication, especially women,
yes,
because we like to connect with each other, is sharing a complaint. We complain about this and we complain about that, and then we're looking for agreement, and the person agrees, and then they share a complaint, right? It's like a bitch session, right? Like that's our normal tendency of where we go in communication. Right. But when you share something that's a win, they're like, oh, they're suddenly listening, because we all want wins. We all want to succeed. And when somebody shares enthusiastically, and by the way, when she's sharing she mentions enthusiasm, it's authentic. This is not a manufactured, like you see so many people get on webinars and they're like, hey guys, like it's just too fake, right? We just be authentic about what you feel good about and this win. And keep in mind, Susan's talking right now about eating organic food, but you can apply all of these tips and techniques to 5G, to health freedom, to human trafficking, to GMOs, to whatever that is the thing that is true to you and that you're raising awareness about. Just think of those few things, like what is that one or two like things that you would drop for a seed to grow in their brain when you say, here's what I found. What's the thing that worked the most for you, right? And if it's something around, health freedom or vaccines or GMOs or 5G, usually for us moms, it's a health thing, right? Like for me, it would be something, what I found? I found that when I read the ingredients of vaccines, that really, like I never knew those before. And I found that those were connected to some of my kids' health issues. Stop. Then they would ask, well, which ones? Right? You want to stop, right? So whatever that issue, or 5G, right? I found that was connected to my kids' health issues or my own health issues and my sleep issues. And then you want to allow them to ask a question. Right, Susan?
Right. And they will definitely say, really, because now they're intrigued. And now you stop talking. So, which means you're not going to try to sell me on something. You're just sharing. If you keep talking, people's don't sell me radar goes up. You know what I mean? Oh, a salesperson, don't sell me. But if you just say something and stop, you're sharing. If you keep going, you're selling. And people have a defense against being sold.
Yeah.
All right. So and it's hard for us. Go ahead.
I want to hear from somebody. Yeah. Well, first, Carol, you have a question. And then if anybody wants some coaching, like you have a but, like you have a real I've got somebody who's really a tough nut, right? Like what would I say to them?
Give it to me. Give it to me.
Okay,
Right.
go ahead, Carol. You had a question first?
Okay, no, I just had a comment. I agree with everything you're saying, and I have a really good example of what not to do. And I was recently on a trip with my sister-in-law, and I was in her beautiful home, and she said, "Carol, would you hand me a Diet Coke out of the refrigerator?" And I reacted.
Oh, you froze up. Did you? Well, at least to me, you froze up. She froze up to you guys too?
Yeah.
I think I started to hear her say, I reacted. Right?
So why don't you put it in the chat so we can see what you're going to say? Because I think you're almost done.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, she's frozen. Maybe she doesn't know that we're frozen up yet. But yeah, we want to hear the end of that. But Carla, while Carol's sorting that out, she's saying, I'm definitely the fire hose down the throat approach. This is so helpful. Aren't we all so passionate? So much to share. Yes, we are. It all comes from passion and dedication and knowledge. But think about it. You studied this stuff for years, right? Probably for years before you got to this point of this conversation with a loved one or a family member in your life. And if you make them wrong about not knowing or not wanting to hear what you have to say, it's really not fair, right? Like they don't have the years of experience that you do. Okay, it looks like Carol, are you back with us?
Yeah, and what I wanted to say in making that one comment, oh my God, I can't believe you having a Diet Coke. She got totally defensive. She said, I'm on vacation. I don't want to hear. And I couldn't really approach her about anything the rest of the trip. So I had cut off that opportunity to do it differently. So I totally get what you're saying. Totally makes sense.
You can always listen, I apologize all the time for being, for running people over, because sometimes it's like watching a train wreck. You know what I mean? I walk into their house and they're feeding their kids, and I feel like saying, oh my God, what's wrong with you? And sometimes I say things inappropriate. So I apologize. I say, listen, I apologize. I didn't in any way, shape or form meant to feel like that. It's just that I've done a lot of study in this. And, now when I see something like this, then because I know the impact, then, I just care about you. That's why I said what I said. And I really apologize. Yeah. And then sometimes they'll say, well, what's your issue with Diet Coke or whatever it was? Because I apologized and said, I just did so much study on this that that's why it bothered me, but I had no right to come at you like that. Then sometimes they'll, be forgiving and ask me what I found, or they just want to move on. And if they want to move on, here's another hot tip, by the way. If you're ever in a really awkward situation where you killed the space, you know what I mean? Like you just killed it. Then you want to be ready with your, it's called a redirect, where you have something else to talk about that's light and fun. So here it's really awkward. Both people feel super awkward. You blew it. You offended them. You say, listen, I really apologize for offending you. It's just that, I've done a lot of research on this and I really care about you, but it's fine. It's fine what you're doing. You're healthy. It's great. It's fine. By the way, have you seen that really cute movie? Or did you see that thing on Netflix, Social Dilemma? It is so interesting. I'm doing a redirect. I'm changing the subject. And they will often go there with me. And now the affinity comes back into the conversation. They'll go there with me and go, oh yeah, I saw that cute movie too. Or no, that's too silly for me, but have you seen X? So because I am passionate, and sometimes I am too much for people, I have 3 good redirects. So if I kill them, I run over them, I can change the subject. Otherwise, you sit there beating yourself up going, what did I do? What did I do? Oh my God, I really screwed up. And you're beating yourself up. Just let it go. You care about them and just introduce a new subject.
And not only are you beating yourself up, but you've killed off the relationship for that moment. Right. So the sooner, like she said, for the rest of the weekend, right? Really no way to communicate very much with her. Now that can go on for years, right? That can go on for 15 years with your sister, right? So you want to recover as quick as possible. And what I heard, Susan, what you said, you are willing, you are open to reclaiming that moment. And you're like, it's never over and done, right? You can reclaim that moment and apologize and be authentic and be like, oh, wow, I totally spoke out of line. I was just blurted something out. I wasn't thinking, I'm so sorry, and just reclaim that, right? In that moment and get back on track with the redirect. I love that.
Right. And sometimes I'll say to people, listen, I apologize. Sometimes I can be a little intense and I know that's can be a little painful. I'm sorry. So I'll say something like that. And you know what? They'll say, yeah, no kidding. You can be intense. Now, instead of defending myself or getting offended, I own it. There's a lot of things that work about me and there's some things that don't, and I own it and it's all okay. It's all okay. You know what I mean? I'm okay. And they're okay. And they got it out. And I actually appreciate them saying it because now that they said what they said, they don't have to sit on this resentment called I was intense and I offended them, whatever. I say, listen, sometimes I can be intense. I'm sorry if I came out too strong or if I offended you. That wasn't my intention. And that's all I say. And then they say, it's okay. And we move on. And then we talk about something safe. Like talking about our favorite movie or TV program is very safe. So then we talk about something safe. And if I've offended them, and this is important about talking about something safe. You don't want to immediately go from there to talking about politics because you're liable to offend them again. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you've already blown it, this is a hot tip. Stick with some safe subjects for about the next hour. Recover your relationship. And then you can risk something that's maybe not so safe. But you don't want to go from offending them over one thing and then offending them over the next thing. Then you will have a lousy weekend. So it's a redirect that's safe. Do I really care what I'm watching on TV? No. But it's a fun topic. I couldn't possibly offend them.
Right. TV, sports, movie, right? Something easy. Not
something
a book.
Cute your children did.
Yes. Yeah. Not a book
Something
about
really
the
cute your
subject.
children did. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. Not a book about the subject that you want them to read so that they're smart as you.
No. Now you just came on way too strong again. And this is the thing, if you're really good at recovering your relationship and like that, then they'll eventually come up. I mean, how many of you raise your hand? You've talked to people you've known for years about organic and eventually they came around. Mm-hmm. How many of you raise your hand? Yeah, exactly. Now I have found that you need to slow down before you can speed up. Meaning you have to start out with feel, felt, found, be gentle. If they don't ask you any questions, you let it go. You appear to be okay with what they're doing. You may not be, but you appear that way. You appear to be laid back and relaxed. That makes you very approachable, and slowly but surely you can go through the process. And that's where, you need, humility. I like this word, humility, and
making
all of that.
And making the relationship more important than teaching them, than being right.
Yeah, and the relationship is more important because if you don't have the relationship, then you're not going to get anywhere. Now, for me, because notice I talk fast. So I am pretty fast. I'm an A-type personality. I'm passionate like that. I'm intense. Knowing I need to slow down before I can speed up is something that resonates with me, that gets me to slow down and be patient. And that's something I have to remember. Now, another type of person may not need to remember that, but I do. So because I know that, I'm able to correct faster before I, whatever.
Okay, so who has a
drown them?
Who has a really tough situation, or somebody who's like, oh, like I could just not talk to my mom about this or about another topic? Right. And who would like to have maybe a little coaching or a question? Yes, Kelly.
So and probably many of us here are dealing with this too. I'm the only person in my extended family that has concern about the COVID vaccine. I'm the only one. Everyone else is lining up with so much excitement. And one little peep that's coming out of me of, well, don't you think we should wait and see? You know, I genuinely am concerned that my parents are going to go and get this. And I mean, they're not in the best of health. And don't you think we should wait and see and test? And I am so shot down so quickly by, in fact, a friend just brought by a like holiday necklace that says, can't wait to get the vaccine. I mean, this is all around me. And so what would you suggest with that? Because it's sad to me because I'm scared for my family, but at the same time, you know, they shut their ears.
So Zen actually gave this to me. All right. And I have the same thing with my family. I think everyone does. Is if you tell them not to get it, you sound like a crazy person.
Yes.
But if you tell them to wait, yeah, you sound like a crazy anti-vaxxer. A lot of people are turned off by that. But if you tell them to wait and say, you know, I've looked at getting the COVID vaccine also, and I know how you feel like you want to escape it. But what gave me caution, now this is the found part, is I found out that who they tested the vaccine on was young men in their 20s with 6% body fat, who were super healthy. And they still got a reaction. It was mild. You know, some of them got a mild case of COVID where they got a fever and chills and like that, but it was mild. And that's kind of the purpose of vaccine. They got a mild case. But personally, I want to wait to see what happens with the general population to see if they get a reaction and how severe it is before I'm willing to get it. And you know what everyone has said to me? That makes sense.
Interesting.
They say that makes sense, and
helpful.
some say they'll wait, and some say they won't. Now, what's interesting is I said that to my sister. She is immune compromised. She is scared, and she wants it. And I said to her, she says, that's a really good point. She said, I already signed up to get it. I'm number 10,000. So I'm going to have to wait anyway. So I'm going to watch the news and see if there are reactions before my turn comes up and evaluate. But given I'm immune compromised, this is tough for me. And I said, I feel for you. It's really tough, you know, for you, because if you get it, it could be worse than the vaccine. We don't know. But then again, the vaccine may have long-term consequences. Let's watch it. So that was her response. She was very receptive because I used feel, felt, found. And I said, I can understand why you want to get it. You're immune compromised. It sounds great.
Yeah.
And let's point out, Susan, that you referred to yourself. I would like to wait. I'd like to see how it goes.
Exactly. I didn't say you should wait.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And here's another hot tip. The should word turns people off. No, don't say exactly. That's a super great point. You know, Zen, that I am so well trained in talking that way that sometimes I forget that I talk that way for a reason. If you immediately go, you should, you become their mother, immediately they feel put down and demeaned. They don't like it. Always say I, which is the feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. This is I felt what I found. So I decided before I really make a decision, yes or no, to see what happens. And if there's any long-term consequences in any studies that are done. And, you know, and I may be with you, I don't know. Or I may go for this, live like a hermit until we achieve herd immunity, and then I'll come out with a face mask.
Yeah, and the other thing is she's being open, right? Susan is not resistant and hardcore like one way or the other. She's being open to her sister's point of view too. Right. We want to make sure not to come across as hardcore, like, no, it's only this way and it has to be this way, because what we're projecting is fear. And that puts other people in a fearful place too. That's not fun.
Yeah, and people don't like fear. And see, the other thing is I am 68, so I'm quote the age group where I'm starting to become vulnerable. So I have complete compassion for where she's at. She's 4 years younger than me, but she's got issues and she's way overweight. And this is the thing that's interesting to me about COVID is all those people you heard, not all of them, but a significant number of the people you heard die in their 20s or whatever, they were overweight. There's something about sugar handling, diabetes, being overweight, that makes one much more, susceptible to a severe case. But this is my opinion. They're not saying that because they don't want to shame people. There's so many things you can't say now to be politically correct. So, and I'm 19% body fat because I'm fit, so I'm not as scared. So anyway, I've mentioned that. I said, if you want to protect yourself, there's things you can do right now, like take more vitamin D and stuff like that, so which has them more comfortable to wait. You know what I mean?
Because they're doing something. They're taking something.
They're doing something. And I don't know how many of you know about this, Kelly, with regard to COVID, but olive leaf, which is totally natural, keeps viruses from replicating. It's so powerful, it kills herpes on the spot. So it's not as strong as these drugs are using for COVID. I'm not claiming that at all. But I take it every day and it gives me a comfort level, that where I'm more willing to wait because I feel like I am protecting myself. I'm wearing a face shield now and stuff like that. So these are other things you can contribute, which is addressing their concern in a constructive way, rather than this all or nothing, if you don't get the vaccine, then, you're going to die kind of thing.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about, it's called olive leaf extract. It's olive leaf. Yeah.
Yes.
So
you can buy it at Amazon. It's not a prescription at all. Olive leaf keeps viruses from replicating. They give it to humans, they give it to horses, it kills bacteria. And oil of oregano is even more powerful at killing bacteria, but this is a virus. Oil of oregano also kills a virus, but it keeps viruses from replicating.
Right. So we could get all into the tips, but I want to get back to how you're speaking.
Right. Feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
Right.
And you mentioned this word concern. Now we did feel, felt, found, and I just want to extend it a little bit more, because something that you do in your communication is that you get their commitment, like you hear their concern and you acknowledge it.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, when somebody's fearful or when they're angry or they want to cut you off, how do you bridge that gap? Can you talk a little bit about getting what they're committed to or their concerns?
All right. First, I want to say something that I saw in the chat that I want to address. Okay.
Sure.
Is if you're someone's sister and there's sibling rivalry and they think they're smarter than you, and you're telling them to do whatever, eating organic is better and glyphosate and all this other stuff, they hear you like you're my sister. So I always say, listen, if I sent you a short article, would you be willing to read it? And it has a doctor's name to it, they're going to take it far more seriously than listening to you. So credibility is really, really important. So someone said, with COVID to take vitamin D and the rest of it, you need to send them an article because you're just the sister. What do you know? And you have to remember that. All right, so Zen, repeat your question. I apologize. Go ahead. Ask me what you were going to ask me again.
So you mentioned getting their concern a lot.
Right.
And there's a bridge, that you and I know about because we've talked about this many times, called, getting their commitment, like really, and getting concern. Can you talk a little bit more about that so people get what's underneath that fear and that concern?
Right. So in getting their commitment, if I'm talking to a mom, I know she's committed to her children, keeping her children healthy. So what I might say is, like you, I'm committed to, the health of my family. And I know that you have probably done a lot of research, and I would love to hear what you found out. What I found was A, B, and C. So now, I want to hear what you found. You're going to share your hot tips. I'm going to share my hot tips. It's more, I don't know the right word for it, but I'm saying it's more like interactive, where I'm not the teacher and you're the student. It's more like, because I promise you, they are committed to their children's health and they have all kinds of hot tips and they share it with me. It may not be organic, it may be something else. Mm-hmm. And they'll say something like, I don't know, whatever is, I have my children in 3 different activities because I know how important exercise is. And I'll say, I'm with you on that. Our children spend way too much time playing video games. So I'm with them. I'm like sitting next to them with my arm around their shoulder rather than talking at them.
Very good. Very good. And
So you want to you be careful about talking at people.
yeah. And again, they feel heard.
Yes.
And that also by asking them, like, what have you learned? Or
Yes.
you know, you care about what they have to, like,
Right.
think about it. If you have a complaint that nobody's listening to what you have to say, check in. Are you listening to what they have to say? You might need to do a whole lot of that first before they will listen to what you have to say, right? So when's the last time you asked them a question about this issue?
Right. Right. The other thing I want to say is be really careful. Never get in between anyone and their doctor, because we're not doctors. You know what I mean? So if someone's doctor tells them to take the COVID vaccine, you don't want to get in between them and their doctor. You really don't. It's just not going to go well. I mean, you could get in trouble, you know, if they don't take the vaccine and they get COVID and you got in between them and their doctor, your entire family is going to condemn you. So same thing with anything. So you need to, you know, be very careful about anything like that.
Great. Any other questions?
You could wind up on the news. You could wind up, and I want to say that because you're recording this. Moms Across America is not telling people not to get the COVID vaccination. It's something that should be in between people and their doctor. There is a concern out there, and we're addressing people's concerns who may have that concern. But, you know, it's like that. But we don't ever want to get in between people and their doctor.
Great. And we want to have people, we want to listen to people, and we want to be able to give them some type of tip or direction, you know, if they're open to it, on where they can learn more, right? And with a credible source. Max, you had your hand up?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to emphasize about the vitamin D. There was an analysis, and everybody who died of COVID-19 had suboptimal levels of vitamin D, like 30 and below. Nobody with vitamin D over 35 died.
Interesting.
That had good levels of vitamin D, right? So that's a good tip for, you know what I found?
I would recommend
that everybody
5,000 units a day. Also, if they want additional support, vitamin C, they just can eat lots of fruits and vegetables, zinc, quercetin, basic nutrients that support against it. But the COVID-19 is just the flu. It's a coronavirus is, if you look up the dictionary and the definition in the dictionary, coronavirus is the flu.
Okay, hang on,
That's
Max.
all it is.
You're getting in. Hang on. We gotta stop ourselves, because you're getting in the world of preaching, right? So when you're talking to somebody about it, you want to just stop and then wait for them to ask a question, because then they start feeling attacked, right? With like too much information.
They're not going to agree with you that it's just the flu. They're not going to agree with you.
And it's going to come across as perhaps like selfish or careless, that because they may have an autoimmune compromised issue. They may be obese. They may be older weight. They may feel like you just want them to take a few vitamins and stop being silly and put themselves at risk. They're not going to feel heard. Right.
And they could in fact be taking a few vitamins and putting themselves at risk. So, you know, we're not experts here, but the whole point of this conversation is to express ourselves in a way that's enrolling, because we're concerned about the health of our friends and family, most specifically with regard to eating organic. You know, there's a lot of debate about COVID and vaccines and stuff like that. So if you want to take on that debate, that's fine. To me, talking about eating organic is safe. I'm not going to get in trouble if I encourage people to eat organic. But I am going to get in trouble if I tell people not to get the COVID-19 vaccine. So I would be very careful about that one. Do you know what I'm saying? Stick with organic. That's the point of this. And if you want to recommend people take supplements, awesome. That's fabulous. Now, Zen, I have about another 5 minutes before I have to get off and start another call.
Sure.
So does anyone have anything they want to ask me? Or
I have one other question then, if nobody else does. I just want to check, anybody else has any other questions? Okay, so what about for the people who have cut people out of their life because the politics or the health freedom or some issue, you told somebody to eat better and they took a defense, defense. And so either you were cut out of their life or you have cut them out of their life. Is there hope? Would you reach out?
There is hope.
How would you
This is
do
what
that?
you do. This is what you do. You call them up and say, first of all, you got to wait. So if they say, don't ever call me again, you got to wait like 3 or 4 months. And then you call them up and you say, hey, I was thinking of you. How are you? So it's all about them. It's not about you and your agenda. How are you? And if they are tight-lipped and they say, because they don't want to talk to you, and they say, I'm just fine, okay? That's where you come in with the safe subjects to engage them and say, I don't know how your weather is, but right here is just like whatever. It's just super hot. And I heard where you are, it's super hot too. How are you dealing with that? That's a very safe subject. Do you know what I mean? You don't bring up climate change. You don't bring up politics. You don't bring up any of that stuff that they know you're passionate about, because as soon as you do, they're going to say, oh my God, I just remembered I have to go pick up my children. And they're going to politely get rid of you. All right. It's all about, and all you stick with, because I've had this happen, is talking about them, how they're doing. You are generally interested, and people want to talk. They do. They want to talk to someone who's listening about them, and they'll complain and do whatever. And you're empathetic when they complain or whatever. And that's all you do is ask them how they are. And you don't bring up one controversial subject. And you do that about 3 or 4 times over the next 6, 7, 8 months. And you will know when you can bring up this touchy subject again, because they may even ask you, or they may bring up a touchy subject, which gave you permission to bring up yours. They'll say something like, I can't believe these people don't believe in climate change. They're such idiots. And you'll say whatever. I know what you're, you say, and stuff like that. By the way, when you and I talked a year ago, we talked a little bit about organic. I was just, I'm not going to preach to you or anything like that. I was just wondering, how you feel about it now. Or you still feel safe with the food you're eating? That's fine. I'm just curious. That's the word I use. I'm just curious as to where you're at now. And if they get their shoulders go up and they say, we're just fine the way we eat, you say, good for you. Good for you. So by the way, have you seen that cute TV show? Again, they got uptight, redirect into something safe, because like you said, Zen, relationship is the most important. If you have a strong relationship, you can talk about anything. So always recover the relationship first. And you're going to have to be patient. You may have to talk about safe subjects for the next 6, 7, 8 months, for a year, before you can touch on something that's, more controversial.
Yeah, because the point is, they won't listen to you if they don't feel safe with you. If they don't feel like you are a safe place, and that you are concerned about them, and that you care about them, and you don't just want to preach.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. They want to know you care about them and that you respect them.
Yeah. So that's another key. Before you go, I just want to add an acknowledgement. You want to find a reason
to acknowledge them. I agree.
Okay. So you want to find something to acknowledge them for. When my sister texts me all this drama about taking care of my mom, I look for, what can I acknowledge her for?
Exactly. And she probably blossomed.
Yep. And then it's just like, our relationship is so much better when I'm looking for that I can acknowledge her for something, being an awesome daughter, being, great sister, all those things. So I really appreciate your time, Susan. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. Was this guy, raise your hand if this was useful? Yes. Yes. Very useful. Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good. So I wish you all the best. I do. And keep going. Organic's so important.
Yes. Thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right. You guys can stay on. Does anybody have any more comments or questions about that topic?
Hi, I have a quick question. I'm just scared to see any doctor. I'm facing some trouble with my abdomen area, and I'm really worried about seeing a doctor.
And why are you worried about seeing a doctor?
I hate taking pills, so don't want to take any pills.
Right. Well, we don't give medical advice on here, right? But we do have like a health coach. Carol Gervais is a health coach. She may have some suggestions, but yeah, we don't give medical advice for sure. Go ahead, Carol.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Oh, hi. Yeah, I don't give medical advice either, but my advice to you would be to do a little bit of research. You can check out my website, foodintegritynow.org. And I offer free consultations. And if you'd like a consultation, I could make some suggestions to you at that point.
Yeah, and that would mean find somebody you are comfortable with, right? You check out Carol, or you check out a different kind of doctor. Maybe it's not a Western medical doctor you go to first. Maybe it's a naturopathic doctor or an integrative doctor, or an herbalist or something, like Chinese doctor. I went to a Chinese Chinese doctor for my son, and that was really the only thing that helped with his allergic reactions to reduce the swelling. So find a doctor that you do feel comfortable with. Yeah, functional or integrative medicine is what Kelly is saying, and Eileen's recommending Dr. Mercola. But he's not going to diagnose you. He's just going to have, tips on different supplements and things like that. Yeah. Thank you for being on. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Neha. Thank you for being on. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Maybe about the communication, the coaching. Wasn't that great? Yeah. I think the hardest thing for me is stopping and not giving, tons and tons of advice. And the other thing that's really hard for me is when my sister or a family member has a complaint, to not try to fix it by giving them, a tip or a technique or an answer or a vitamin or, something like that. The first thing to do that I have found that works is to just hear them and get them and be like, wow, that must be really frustrating for you. Like, wow, not like it sucks, poor you, but like, wow, you're getting how they feel. You're getting their experience. Like, that must be really frustrating. Or I'm sorry, that sounds like you're really sad or you're really angry right now. And they're like, yes, they're getting that you get them. And then, and then acknowledge them for something like, I really hear that you like, or what I hear is, what I get is that you're not going to give up about this. Like, you've been dealing with this allergy with your daughter for, 12 years, and you're unstoppable about this, or you're on fire about this. Like, you got this. Like, I hear it, and so you can give them some encouragement and some acknowledgement. And then, and once they feel gotten and feel heard, they might say, well, something like, well, didn't you have that time when you had a rash, or, when you had a difficult time? And then you could say, yeah. And this is what I did, because they're curious, they're interested. You're not hammering them with information. You want to make sure to get their permission to give them tips and techniques. Right. So, really good. So
it's so hard when there's someone you care about and you just see them going down a really, really bad health path. I mean, when I was really sick, I saw an amazing psychiatrist, and he suffers from Crohn's disease, and he has since he was like 12. And even though he saw me completely rebuild my body, like, he couldn't get there. And it's so sad. He struggles every day. And I'm like, but I know it. And now I'm to the point where I'm just having to sort of I don't even a lot of times even enter the conversation, because the number of wins I've had versus not, I feel like it's just too much of a strain on my relationships, and it's so sad.
So you can acknowledge that. You can be authentic about that. You can say, no, there's something that I really like to talk to you about. It would be okay if you have like 5 minutes, and you'd say, yeah, or, a couple minutes. You want to get permission first, right? And you would say, and you want to be authentic about that. I've brought this topic up with you a couple of times, and I feel like, I started to feel like, it was kind of hopeless, or I was about to give up. And, then I realized, that that's not who I am. Like, I really care about you, and I'm really committed to you. And so I'm wondering if you'll just hear this one idea that could really get your health back on track. Is that okay if I share that with you? he's probably going to say yeah, right? And you need to figure out what is that one thing. Like sometimes when I talk to moms with autism and they keep saying like, oh, going gluten-free doesn't work, or the dairy-free thing doesn't work, right? I say to them, you know what? I know that a lot of people have tried going gluten-free or dairy-free and say that it doesn't work. But what I found was that we had to go 100% for months. We had to take everything out of the house because I found that if it was in the house, I would eat it. And if I was eating it, he would eat it, right? We had to cold turkey 100%, right? For 3 months and not allow us that, the opportunity to eat it. And once we did that, he started to heal. It was like amazing. And he was so much happier, right? So just think about what is that one thing that they're probably not doing, right? That would really make a difference, or something that's like he can ease into, like switching just his grains out, right? Or switching, that food that he eats the most of. Or for some people, it's cutting out soda, right? Like if you just cut out soda for a month, right? And see your weight difference,
Yeah. Good tips.
So yeah, just wanted, but be authentic with people. It's okay if you feel like, you know what, I feel like our relationship is strained because I've said things that have probably hurt your feelings, right? Be honest about that and be like, I'm really sad and I want to talk to you and I want to hear what's going on with you. Is that okay? Can we talk?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You gotta be authentic and open up again that whole possibility of a relationship. By being authentic, own your own stuff, folks. That's the thing. We can't walk around and being righteous and telling people what to do before we own our own stuff. So that really is, that's the first step. If you're repairing a relationship before you get to feel felt found, right? Because they're not saying anything to you that you can say back, I know how you feel. I felt the same way and here's what I found. If they're not talking to you, right? There's no feel felt found if they're not talking to you. So first you got to get to the place where they feel safe in talking to you. And if there's been, some type of damage, you want to own your stuff first with them and be authentic, not without making yourself wrong. Just like, I really, here's where I'm at and all that. So very good. Don't ever give up on anybody. Now I know there might be exceptions, right? Like if there's abuse or drugs involved, or like somebody's not in their right mind to be able to communicate, you may need to take a step back from communication with them for a bit. But if there's any possibility, if you see any possibility at all for communication, when people are fed and well rested and not busy, right? You do not want to have a conversation with somebody when they're hungry or tired or, lonely or, or maybe lonely, but not, hungry or tired or busy. You want to get permission and make sure it's a good time for them. Cool. Anything else? Social
One thing I really
like
when she was talking about the relationship is the most important. I totally agree. And Kelly, I can relate with what you're talking about. But my mother, I talk to her almost daily, and she'll tell me of all the crappy food she's eaten and stuff. And then she'll say, oh, I know I shouldn't do this. My stomach is hurting. I have brain fog. But she doesn't want me to tell her what to eat. I am not the man in the white coat, which is her authority. And I know that. So what I do is I'll say things like, well, I'm really sorry you feel that way. And, I hope you feel better soon. And then we just talk about things. I lighten it up. We talk about, oh, have you watched that new Netflix series? And if we're bonding. And so I make the relationship more important than me having to be right about something. So
yes.
it's tough with family as you watch them do things that is not going to help them, but it's their life and it's their choice.
And you can still love them. If
And
they
love
choose
them.
to get the vaccine or eat crap food, you can still love the heck out of them.
Yep. And it's a process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I talked to my mom for decades, right? She had diabetes, arthritis, high blood pressure, eczema, psoriasis, all kinds of autoimmune issues. I talked to her for decades about, and she was overweight. And one time when she was here visiting, my son gave her a talk. He asked her if he could share something with her, and he gave her a talk about eating a organic whole food, plant-based diet. And he showed her the arteries, the pictures of the arteries, how they got much healthier, right? When the person went on a whole food, plant-based diet. And so she saw something from a scientific perspective. She heard something from her grandson, not me. And then she went home and got a health coach to come to her house 2 times a month. And she paid this person like $3,000 or something like that, right? She made a commitment. She made a definite commitment. And within 6 weeks, she lost 20 pounds and her metabolism is now that of a 56-year-old. So, but it took decades, right? And it took doing something in a way that worked for her. She got a health coach on her own, somebody that would come to her house, somebody that had all kinds of experience. He had this degree and that degree, and she really respected him. And that was not my doing. My sister supported her, so I acknowledge the heck out of my sister for that one too. Even though my sister doesn't eat 100% the way that my mom did, but she supported my mom, so I really appreciated that. So it could take time sometimes. All right, so Frankie's saying, if someone tried to convince me to change contrary to what I want to do, I'd take offense too. Yeah, you don't want to tell people that what they're doing is wrong, right? You want to get them and hear them and acknowledge them. So thank you very much, everybody. Anything else before we go? I just wanted to say, I think that was a great conversation. Yeah.
I have a question here with,
yes.
We have a scenario. It's someone I'm not really that close with, a new neighbor who has a son that is like new friends with my son, and they announced, oh, we're going to get our flu shots just last week. And I'm like, oh, I don't usually hang out with people that do mainstream medicine, but they did go. And all of a sudden their kids are sick this week. They're, whatever. But my son also came down with sniffles and stuff over the weekend. And so first of all, I'm wondering, can the flu shot shed? And I want to kind of say something to this mom just to maybe correlate for her, like, oh, you're, how they just got the flu shot last week and now here our kids are sick and now they're going for a COVID test and everything. I'm just wondering, is it worth saying anything, first of all, because it's a new relationship? And also, is it possible that my son could have gotten affected, he was immediately with the kids after they got these shots, which was probably a bad choice.
Yeah, so you want to, so yes, they could have gotten it from them, right? The flu shot can shed, according to the science that I've read. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything about that.
Okay.
But the feel found comes in once she shared something with you, right?
Right.
Like, how sick her kids are, or how concerned she is about it, or something like that. And then you say, like, yeah, I know how you feel. When my son got the sniffles, I felt really concerned about the flu, making him really sick, or maybe even being more susceptible to COVID or something like that. And I felt the same way, that he should get the flu shot every year for a while too, or my mother did, or, maybe if it's not you, you gotta be authentic about it. Right. But you know what I found? I found out that the flu shot can actually shed. So I'm actually concerned about, people getting the flu shot, because it can transmit to other people. Now, usually it's not as severe as like the full on flu, but it doesn't protect them from getting a different strain of the flu.
Okay.
And then just drop it. Right? Like, you share like what you found, and and you can always add in something like, I'm still researching this. Like, I don't know. I'm still trying to find out this stuff. It's so confusing, right? You want to soften it with like, you're not the know-it-all about this, right? And not inauthentically, right? But you want to say like, I just found this out. And like, there's a video on Moms Across America when we did our Communities Rising. It's on, if you want to watch our YouTube movie, little documentary, 40 minutes. And there's this lovely lady named Zoe who would go up to people in the grocery store who are buying goldfish, right? Or Pepperidge Farms cookies. And she'd be like, oh my gosh, hi, how you doing? You know what? Can I share something with you, Joe? I just found out that goldfish crackers have glyphosate in them. Did you know what that is? I didn't know, but it's a weed killer. I just wanted to share that with you because, like, I would want to know, right? Like, I wish somebody had told me, right? So it was like, she just found out, it was like this new discovery, and she was just so compelled to share with somebody, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, really? Yeah. Like, you know, like, oh my gosh. She goes like that, like, oh my gosh, you know? So it's like a discovery. It's not, you know, a make wrong. So yeah, but you want to make sure that you're not coming from a place of blaming her if you talk to her about this and making her wrong, because that will not help the relationship.
Right. I don't want to accuse in this case.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And does it really matter? Like, if you got a little bit of the flu,
Yeah.
maybe his immune system's a little stronger now. Like, if she brings it up and you say, well, I don't know, he got the sniffles, maybe his immune system's stronger now. Like, you could just say the benefit of, you know, I actually, sometimes I think it's a good thing if they get it, because then they don't get it for the rest, you know, they're stronger and they don't get it for the rest of the year, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, yeah, Lady Carla is saying the shedding is it's a GMO virus, so it's worse and harder to get rid of. Yeah, and then there's cases too, like where chicken pox, it's not the wild strain, it's the manufactured thing. So it actually leaves you more susceptible to shingles later, right? And they're not actually immune to the, you know, to the wild virus and, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but there's a lot of, you want to be careful with just getting too much in the weeds with that, you know, but just one fact and leave it and let them ask questions. So yeah, so Eileen, I love it. This is a very hyper vigilant time. Like, people are really anxious and nervous, and we need more compassion, like, more love and more compassion and more kindness and more humility and more acknowledgement. And we will sort of bring people back into the fold of being gentle, kind human beings to each other. And yes, Eileen, thank you. I really appreciate saying that. Thank you very much, Susie. Thank you, Frankie and Lady Carla Davis, Eileen and Max and Elizabeth Kelly and Carla. Thank you all for being on the call tonight. We're going to have this on our Moms Across America website under Connect and the Moms Connect website page. And you can share this with your friends or family that ask you if you, like, they're frustrated about something. I know how you feel. You know what I found? I felt the same way. And you know what I found? That I was communicating in a way that was pretty aggressive with people. And I was like a fire hose of information. And so I found this, you know, great coaching thing on this website, Moms Across America, that it really helped. And they'll be like, oh, where do I get that? Here you go. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody. Take care. Have a great night and have a wonderful, happy Hanukkah to everybody who's celebrating Hanukkah. Happy holidays to everybody who is, you know, celebrating Christmas and New Year's soon. And I'll miss you for the next 2 weeks, but I promised my family I'd take some time off and do Christmassy stuff with them. But if there's any news thing, like, you know, real important, I will do like a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, and I'll make sure that you guys are up to date. Okay. Take care, everybody. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.